Alright, guys, thanks for tuning in. I hope the fan in my background isn't going to be too loud or noisy. And I am not sure what's up with my throat. It's either it's from smoke or incense burning. Yeah, I've been a little cough, a little clearing my throat. Got water right next to me, so I'm hoping, I sound like I'm almost losing my voice, actually. Anyways. Yeah, a really close friend of mine posted a video diary episode that I really hope he'll continue doing. Really cool stuff. And he touched on a lot of cool points that I was like, wow, yeah. Very, very well said. He's very well spoken, and I really liked everything that he had to say. Of course, I'm definitely biased towards my friends, but also, I was thinking about it from even like outside perspectives and thinking, like even people who don't know him would probably find a lot of benefit from, if he's recording video diaries and posting them with that type of content or other kind of like deep topic content. I think it's definitely beneficial. We definitely spend a lot of our time with things that are ultimately kind of on the superficial end. And I've been studying a lot about happiness and energy fields and energy vibrations. So I haven't really organized how I was really going to talk about this, but overall, when it comes to happiness, it's an interesting thing. You can be happy in almost any situation, right? Happiness is kind of relative. What I mean is, I could be in a line of myself and 100 people. Yes, we're not going to have the same background. We're not going to have the same, demographics and everything. But say we all witness the same experience. Something simple. Say 100 of us are standing out on the sidewalk, lined up side by side in front of my parents' house. And, it's the 4th of July. It's not right now. It's already passed, but say for the example, it's the 4th of July and we're watching the fireworks, from a distance, and you can hear them, and behind the buildings that are across the street, across the highway, across, to other parts of the city, you can see the fireworks at different times of night. For a lot of people, it's like, okay, it's a holiday, it's a happy experience. For some people, they might not like the noise. For some people, they might not like being around so many people. Some people don't like the traffic. Everyone has their preferences, right? But the interesting thing is when you take something like that's, not even talking about the political background of it all or anything. Something as simple as a day off from work, a holiday with friends or family, and you're just doing the same thing that a lot of people are doing around in society. Some people are going to be happy, some people are not. Some people are in between. Some people couldn't care less. There's a range. You're definitely going to get a range. And it's like that with a lot of things. And if you take that idea and you think about, happiness. There's kind of like the removed idea of happiness, of like certain things that you think, if I get here, if I get there, I'm gonna be happy later, at a later time. Even if it's like when my shift is over, I'll be happier than I am, after, once 4:01 p.m. hits, I'll be happier than I was, at 7:59 a.m. 1 minute before logging into work. I'll be able to focus on my own things. Maybe I don't have all my same energy, but I won't be, so concerned with whatever it is that I'm doing, maybe at work, that makes me not want to be there or anything like that. Usually, it's that's kind of a common thing that happens. Not just work, not just school, not just, just the daily stuff that we do, but one thing I noticed that's common is that we tend to kind of go through the motions about things, and the less freedom we have, there is kind of this sense of joy or happiness attached to it. But, when we have our basic needs met, it really is kind of, in a way, it can be a choice. Now, I'm not talking about like severe mental health, symptoms and things like that, or, people with chronic pain issues and those types of things. Like, I'm just talking about, just if you're just thinking in general about, where does happiness come from, and what is it that increases or decreases happiness. A lot of times it really is, it's an energy, it's a vibration. It's mostly what it comes down to, which is kind of weird, because I feel like we get so far removed from that and thinking about, topics and things and situations. I mean, I have very unhappy days. I have consecutive unhappy days. I'll be all irritated and pissed off and angry for like no freaking good reason. Like, I'll wake up sometimes and be like, like, F this. Like, I don't want to do this today, but I have to, At my previous job, I remember, I got in such a good track record, of, coming in all the time. I think the first year I was officially employed, I didn't take any days off at all, other than, we were given weekends off and like national holidays and stuff. But other than that, I don't think I requested any day off at all. Yeah, I don't think I requested any day off, not one. And I did that to, make sure I had a good track record, make sure I had I was kind of paying my dues, I was like, get everything right, don't make any mistakes, not work holidays, but, I didn't even request off, like, the day before holidays, the Monday off after holiday weekends, like the typical kind of days that people request to spend extra time with family, friends, by themselves, just recovering, doing what they want to do. And later on, in the same job, I started noticing I got a reputation for being very reliable. The clients didn't complain because I was taking good care of them. I wasn't just like out all the time. Staff was, oh, you're reliable, you're going to be here, so can you can you check in with my client when you're when I'm out and things like that. And like, it wasn't like always like extra work. It wasn't like that necessarily, but, I got a reputation, you know, and then I'm not saying that later I was able to slack, not necessarily, but then I kind of noticed, I could ask for like whatever day off I wanted, I never really took full advantage of it, but I'm just saying I would ask for whatever day off I wanted. Never got pushed back, not once, not ever. I would and usually I would strategically take the holidays off that we already had off, and then I would request days off once everybody came back to work. It would be like maybe the week after a holiday, I would request day like that week off or half the week or whatever, combined with the weekend, and I'd usually get 4 or 5 days off or something, and that was fine for me, And the reason why I like taking days off that aren't necessarily national holidays, first of all, we get the national holidays off anyways. Second, I don't really travel that far to a point where it needs to be such a long distance. Another reason is that, on holidays, most national holidays, I'm mostly obligated to my family, my parents, my siblings, very close friends of the family. I'm not usually just able to just run around and do my own thing. Plus, a lot of stuff is closed. If I want to like do something specific, a lot of stuff that I like to do is closed. And a lot of the public spaces like the beaches or the, depending on the time of year, or like snowboarding in the mountains or whatever, everything's super packed. Everything's super expensive. Hotels are expensive. Everything is like overpriced. There's traffic everywhere. Parking sucks. Like, for me, taking days off during the holiday isn't relaxing because I'm already like swamped with other obligations, and I can't just get out and do what I want, right? So for me, taking holidays off was never, I mean, I know everyone has their preferences, but it's just my own preference. Taking the actual holidays off, it was like, this to me doesn't make sense for my preferences and my ideal way of spending my free time. So that's why I still, most of the time, when I take days off, it's like the week after the holiday when everybody comes back to work. And, your boss isn't going to hassle because you're not like fighting for like, okay, we have to have at least this many people in the office. Who wants to be in the office? Like I'll stay in the freaking office. I'm not going anywhere. And then everybody comes back to work and then I leave. It's like everyone else is coming back. They have to follow up with all their stuff. And I'm just like gallivanting around, all the prices drop for everything. I can go out of town if I feel like it, flights are easier, hotels are cheaper, there's a lot of stuff on sale because everybody's trying to get rid of all the holiday stuff that other people didn't buy. It's not really the travel season anymore after whatever the holiday is, depending on the holiday, but like, yeah, like other sites are just trying to make money off of you. So it's like, I kind of know that's the trend of things. And I take days off when it's not holidays, and I find it a lot more relaxing. Everyone's kind of in town. People aren't like out of town for like, it's not Christmas, it's not New Year's, it's not, Thanksgiving. Like, people are in town versus out of town, and I might want to hang out with them and spend time with them. It's like everybody's back, I can make plans to go see people in places because they've already done their traveling and come back home, so I can actually do a little traveling and go see them. So it's things like that where I'm like, okay, like I don't necessarily need those days off, but I don't know why I mentioned all that, but basically just trying to say, like a lot of people want to take days off work for their happiness or their mood or their energy, and it can be hard to even do that, even if it's owed you, even if it's rightfully your days off. A lot of times, you're gonna get some pushback. When I was a practicum student, I got pushback. When I was in school, I got some pushback a little bit. But excuse me. Yeah, happiness isn't necessarily going to come from that kind of thing, just because you have days off work doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be happier. It might, in a lot of cases, be a lot more stressful, sometimes depending on the people that you might be required to spend more time with. It might be a stressful environment, to have to be around certain people that you might not want to be around. But yeah, free time is a big deal. How people spend their own personal free time is a big deal. A lot of times we're not really taught to pay attention to, energy frequencies at all. But, we get so, bogged down in the, I can't afford this, or this isn't fair, and, a lot of times you can have your basic needs cared for and be really, really happy and still have nothing, or you can have your basic needs cared for and, have nothing and be miserable because you want things that you don't have, whether that's things you can purchase or things that, are internal things, or maybe like the way you look or the way you are or the people around you or a relationship you might want or something like that. You might just not have certain things that you really want. And so maybe that's about the background of what I would want to say about happiness, like on the surface, kind of how it looks, how we decide if we're happy or not. And again, I'm not trying to make light of, people who have severe depression. I'm not trying to make light of people who are grieving or people who, have some internal struggles going on. I'm not the type of person to just say, hey, be happy. But I think a lot of times it helps to look at happiness. Just look at it. Just look at it. Because, if you're like me, when you're not happy, you go through this whole, habit in your mind of just repetitive, kind of like nonsense, like repeating nonsense, basically, is what I would consider it. There's a lot of thinking about things that didn't go right in the past. This could have been better if that happened. That could have been better if this happened. Why did I do that? Why did they do that? And then the dreaded things that are upcoming. I don't want to do this thing coming up. I don't know why this person is making me do these things that are coming up. I don't want to feel obligated to this. This is a lot of pressure coming up, or a lot of pressure now because of something coming up later. And then usually it passes. And, one day you kind of just realize you're feeling better. And it's like, why am I feeling better now than I was then? Like, what's up? Sometimes it can be just super basic stuff, like not sleeping properly, not eating properly, not getting exercise properly, not taking proper breaks. That kind of stuff is golden, and I know it's easy to overlook. But another thing that I think gets overlooked is something that's really important, that is what contributes to your energy. What is it that makes your energy shift, right? If something or a situation or a combination of things can lead to unhappiness, you can reverse the process into happiness, right? And mostly it boils down to frequencies. Now, I'm not gonna go all into some neurological thing, but in general, pretty much everything that we process as a human is processed in waves, right? Everything is a form of a wave to some extent. What we see visually is due to waves, frequency, light. What we hear is due to waves, audio waves. As I'm recording, I'm looking at my phone and I see a representation of waveforms. It doesn't show you a lot about it, but it shows you basically how loud you are being. It doesn't show you like the burst of energy. It doesn't show you necessarily like the forms of the letters, but it's all, that stuff is all in waves as well. And a lot of our body physically is impacted by, either pain or different type of sensations, pain, comfort, discomfort, tension, like relaxed muscles. You have your breathing. I mean, it's all just different frequencies. It was just really weird, right? That's all it really is. There are frequencies around us, and we respond to them with emotion of some kind. But it's not always so apparent because we're usually so busy doing whatever we're doing that it's not the easiest thing to think about what is the frequency that's altering how I feel right now. A lot of times, not always, but a lot of times it can be changed. And sometimes, if you're like me, you sometimes like to have like an emotional state of mind where maybe it's not even super positive. I get a lot of benefit from not being in a good mood sometimes, on an artistic level, musically. I'm not saying I'm like a skilled musician or anything, but I like to write music, even though I don't share it with hardly anybody, but it's mine and I like it and I do it anyways when I feel like it. And usually I feel like it when I'm not in a good mood. I rarely create music when I'm feeling awesome. I tend to like darker sounds. I tend to like metal. I tend to like minor key music. And it's hard for me to really make music like that when I'm all like chipper and like bouncing around, and nobody wants to be like, making like Metallica covers or like Linkin Park covers and all kinds of music like that when you're like in a good mood. You want to be just like floating around. Having either negative energy or, difficult emotions to be dealing with, for me, actually does help with creative processes. And so I do kind of, sometimes when I'm in those states of mind, I'm not so quick to be like, let me get out of here. Let me get out of this mindset and change into something that feels good. Let me make myself feel better, immediately. For me, that's not always ideal because I don't really get the full spectrum of the experience. Like sometimes, I'm not like, I don't even know if I'm saying this correctly, but like I'm not saying that like I like wait for the days that I'm like not feeling good and I'm like, thank God I don't feel good today. Like I'm not like that, but it's just like I can see that it's, there is something to be that gets produced. There's some benefit that comes from it. There's definitely way more non-beneficial things that come from it, but it's beneficial in some ways, at least for creative processes. Sometimes it's not good for the focus. It's not good for wanting to do things, but it's good for actually having things to process and things to say. Like, I feel like when I'm in a good mood, I don't tend to process things as much. I don't sit and like ponder and think about things. I really like to daydream. I know that might sound like the weirdest thing on earth, but I love, just like a Saturday morning, wake up, I'm not busy. It's probably 5:30 in the morning. The sun's coming out a little bit, and I'm just like, yes, this is like ideal, like prime daydream time. Like I can just sit and think and let my mind just like go, and I'm wide awake, and I'm just like, I don't have anything to do for at least the whole day for the most part. And even if I do have something to do that day, usually most people aren't awake at like 5 something in the morning, so I'm not doing anything at least till like 8 or 9 in the morning, which is still a little late for me. So yeah, I'm kind of on that level, kind of like a little bit kind of like, okay, it can be weird, but I do think that there is a process to being able to create happiness. And again, like, I don't really think that it's necessarily good to ignore how you feel all the time. I don't think it's always good to process how you feel all the time. I don't think it's always good to be meditating all the time, or like, there has to be like a balance to things. And sometimes it's good to just listen to your body, listen to your mind and heart, and think about like what is actually going on. Like, sometimes we do need those kind of like bad moods to slow us down, to kind of get us to kind of change something, or get back on track with something, or hit some kind of reset button somewhere along the line. That's kind of how I see it anyways. And it's not easy though. It's not an easy thing to not feel good. But I think one place that it really can start is being able to shift your energy on purpose from different emotional states. I think a lot of people have an easier time making themselves sad than they do making themselves happy. For example, not a lot, but say if you're in an acting class or something like that, where they're like, make yourself cry or whatever, or you're like, doing some kind of like presentation where you're like acting, right? If you actually are feeling that emotion, it's really gonna be obvious. And if you're not feeling that emotion, it's gonna be obvious. Like, it's very subtle. That's one thing that I really admire about actors is just, how they are able to go through a range of emotions like that. And like, I know for myself, I have a hard time with work because of the compassion fatigue. It's just like, sometimes I'm like, man, like, I can't turn it off for work. I just can't. And And then I'm like, dude, I've got plenty other people in my life outside of my clients that, deserve my energy and attention as well. And I've got nothing to give people sometimes. And that's not necessarily like the easiest place to be in, where I'm just like, somebody I actually want to like be around or talk to or catch up with is trying to like get in touch with me or catch up or something. And I'm like, I literally have no energy for this person. And not even because they're like annoying or anything like that, but just because I just gave all my energy to other things. And I mean, energy is like one of the most precious things that we have. We can give it away. We can make more of it. We can produce it. We can avoid it, kind of numb from it. We can alter it in a lot of different ways. And just learning about it, learning how to shift your mind into a happy state is hard for people to learn how to do. It's hard for me to even explain how to do it. And I'm not talking about if, of course, if someone has a severe diagnosis of some kind, or if it's just like, it comes in waves, comes and goes in waves, where people just naturally get depressed. I mean, if you're in a depressed wave, it's not going to be necessarily like easy. I'm just talking about like just like a general like irritable day, like not necessarily like, okay, this has been going on for a long time, why am I feeling like this? Like that might be something different. But I'm not saying it doesn't work at all. It's just not the easiest thing to see progress with things budging. So, I mean, I have like a lot of weird processes that I'm able to kind of like practice and do just because that's just how I like to spend my free time. So a lot of people who are interested in modern day psychology know a lot about like grounding and deep breathing and mindfulness and all those things. And I know sometimes that can be the worst thing, right? Almost like when somebody tells you like I don't know, like not everybody's spoken to like therapists, but like I mean, I don't mind sharing that I've talked to therapists. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Obviously, I mean, I work in the field. Obviously, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. And I like different professional perspectives that are unbiased people. One thing I don't like is when you tell them one thing that might be bothering you, and then they're just like, here's a bunch of worksheets, and here, like, do these CBT worksheets, do these ACT worksheets, do these DBT worksheets, and I'll give you like a deep breathing script. And it's like, thanks for that. Like, I know that's not why I came here. I could have Googled these by myself and done them on my own free time. Like, we know, sometimes some people don't know, but it's almost becoming more common knowledge nowadays that people kind of know like the basic self-help stuff. At least where I'm from, in the area where I live in Southern California, it's common. I don't know. I mean, there's still the stigma with, emotional types of things. People kind of do still have a stigma worldwide around it. But where I live, it's like one of the birthplaces of a lot of things regarding psychology. Not the birthplace, but a lot of different alternative therapy methods were definitely developed in California. And people out here practice all sorts of stuff, and have all sorts of workshops of Reiki types of things, and all kind of things that are just, you couldn't get insurance to pay for it if you tried. Like, it's stuff that's kind of out there, but it actually works too. And so one thing that I notice is electronic devices. Mind you, I use them so much. I mean, I'm on the computer at work. I record on podcasts. I'm on my computer editing things, for my own personal hobbies. I'm online, on computers, on devices. Between laptops and cell phones, I spend a lot of my day with these types of devices. But even just like the habits with them, the habits that come with them, the scrolling, the pick up your phone, the take your phone out of your pocket and scan your face and just go in and just like deep dive into like whatever app you automatically press. I mean, like, I get to a point sometimes where I even have something on my mind. For example, like, this happens so much. I'll be like, oh, my friend who goes to concerts, I know he posted something on Instagram. He responded to me on Sunday. I'm thinking this out loud. This is really something that happened. He responded to me on Sunday, and I saw that he responded, but I didn't read what he wrote. And I'm even thinking about it now on a Tuesday. And I'm like, okay. And I think it was yesterday or Sunday, I went in to Instagram and scrolled all around, and I got distracted watching all kinds of little video clips and like looking at all kinds of stuff. And then somehow I went into YouTube and started like watching something and like scrolling through videos and scrolling, and I'm like, I don't even know what I'm looking for. I'm just waiting for something to like click, and then I'm like, it starts stressing me out. Like, it makes your heart rate go up. It's stressful. And then I'm like, okay, I'll turn off my, turn off the home screen, just put my phone upside down, just leave it alone. And so I do that, and then I'm like, I'm like, what was I gonna, I was gonna look at my friend's Instagram message that he sent me. And then I get back in my phone, and I'm in some other app, and I'm like, oh, I wonder if I still have TikTok. Let me go over there, and let me check my bank, and I'm like, then I turn off my phone, and then I'm like, shoot, I still didn't check the stupid thing. Monday comes around. I'm like, okay, I'm going to check this, and it's like, it's Tuesday. I still haven't checked this freaking message, what he sent me. I've gotten too distracted with other stuff, and it's like, I know I'm not the only one, because I'm not even as attached to my devices as most people are. But I do notice recently that I have to catch myself. So one way I caught myself, and I think I've maybe talked about this before, but one way to figure out about your energy, your mood, how to shift it, is sitting in the silence with things. And eventually, when it becomes uncomfortable, that's what you want to look at, is what is the discomfort that's coming up. Now, I will tell you, if you are in some kind of vulnerable, sensitive situation, you probably don't want to be doing this on a regular basis, or you don't want to like push yourself too hard on it at all. But it's kind of a method that I like, just because I find it beneficial. And even if I'm not gonna fully stop doing something, I will use this method to just not even maybe fully train my brain, but just to get my mind to be more aware and think. So an example of what this looks like, a lot of people know I was raised in a culture that, keeps a form of the Sabbath. Not Jewish, not it's not specifically exactly how Jewish people keep the Sabbath, but recognized in the same time frame as the Jewish Sabbath, with the same general idea of, resting from work, from Friday sundown to Saturday sundown. Now the time shifts because it changes every week. So throughout the year, the Sabbath shifts, right? During the summer, it can be 8 p.m. or something when it starts, and then 8 p.m. or something when it ends. During, the winter, it could be like 4:30 something when it starts, and 4:30 something when it ends. So if you're very strict and you don't work at all during those hours, then you might end up changing your work schedule. If you have a 9 to 5, there are some weeks where you're not working Friday nights, because the sun goes down before 5 p.m. It's not a lot of the year, but there are certain weeks where this is going to come up. And so that's one thing. And then even thinking about if you wanted to do something as strict as that, just some kind of a practice, not even necessarily for a religious reason or spiritual reason, but just a practice to test yourself, to see, what can I detach myself from, and what does that do to my mind? What does that do to my body? What does it do to me when I think about having to shift my schedule? A lot of people would worry about losing their jobs or getting judged at work, or people being like, oh, what are you doing? Are you becoming religious now? Or like, what are you doing? Like people getting nosy in your business about something. I mean, it's kind of a personal choice. It's not really something that people should feel like they have to even talk about. But if you want to do it for work, I mean, you're going to have to tell your boss usually. And if you weren't already doing it before, that's already a challenge that comes up, where it's like, okay, like now I got to tell my boss that I need to do this thing because of whatever personal reasons. And, they can't really discriminate against you, but they might find other reasons to maybe let you go or not give you those days off, or make you compensate by working on a Sunday or some other thing that you'd have to decide around. Or you might just pick a job where you end early, or you can shift your schedule once a week on a Friday for a few weeks out of the month, to get off work at 3 p.m. or something. I don't know. So that's almost as strict as it could get, is the not working, not doing anything. For myself, I'll share at the moment because I don't mind sharing like right now, but like what I've been doing lately is more related to entertainment, television, internet, my cell phone, apps on my cell phone, my computer, what I do on my computer, which is usually either music or writing, which is usually for the podcast or blog or other websites and stuff, and writing, free writing. And I tell myself something simple, like, I set a goal. I set, a, goal for that time period, for that Sabbath time period. And so lately what I've been doing is, not really paying attention to anything that has to do directly with money, finances, right? Not paying direct attention to anything that has to do with, I'm talking about the content I consume. So I don't really watch or listen to podcasts or anything that has to do with money, with violence, like just regular kind of storylines, like take like Fast and the Furious, or like, I don't know, Game of Thrones or whatever, stuff like that. Like I don't watch that kind of stuff. I'm not saying I'm better than anybody or worse. It's always an experiment, right? And I'm just trying to describe it, because it's definitely left a positive dent in my life, to have practices that I do, that they're things that I do. It's not something that I expect anybody else to care about, or I'm just mentioning it in case people like to try different things. I'm just explaining what I do that helps me, that I find beneficial, that is fun for now, even though it's very challenging, but it's, in a way, it's nice and refreshing. I notice I feel way better after the fact, like way better. It's hard to even explain how much better. So the content I do consume can be about religion. That's any religion. It doesn't have to be my religion that I was raised in, or anything that I personally believe. Just anything with religion, belief, spirituality, self-care, kind of like if it's like fitness, like exercise, nature, like anything that's just kind of naturally gonna enrich my life and not just consuming for entertainment purposes only. And just, that is mostly what I kind of watch. I don't really watch sports too much. Now the exceptions that I have are if I have friends that we have important plans together, I'll do whatever we're doing, I'm not gonna say anything about it, or try not to do it, or whatever. If we're going to a movie, I'm going to a movie. I don't care if it's not a movie I would watch on my own personal time during that time period. I'll go to the movie. I'll go shopping and buy stuff. I'll if somebody I know wants to go do something for a profit, and we're just hanging out and it just happens to be part of our plans, I'll do it. I when it comes to social things, that's a little bit different for me. Partying is one of those things where I'm like, I'll just see how I feel about it. Try to pay attention to what I actually need. Do I need this time alone to just disconnect in this way? Or do I need to socialize with my friends and go out and just forget about stuff for a couple hours and just, be around some loud music and just party? What do I feel like I need for myself? What's gonna benefit my energy more? Am I going to be man, I wish I would have gone? Because pretty much everything is going to occur on a Friday night or a Saturday. You might have to get somewhere before the sun goes down, so a lot of things occur during those times. And I change my mind, I alter this, I change my mind. There are times when I don't do this at all, and I just grind through the whole week and don't even really look back and don't even focus on disconnecting at all from anything, no matter what it's, if it's getting to me or draining me or anything, and I will just keep on and keep on. So I definitely have time periods where I'm just I don't care about any of this, any practices of any kind, and I'm just gonna go and do whatever I want when I feel like it. I'm kind of out of that time period at the moment, obviously, but I kind of, that's one thing, is just kind of the type of content I consume. And just, I just sit and I think about it, the content that I'm consuming. And it's interesting how much I have to think about it. And it's also interesting how on occasion I forget and I'm down the rabbit hole somewhere and I'm oh shoot, I wasn't going to be watching this stuff. I can put stuff maybe on my watch later list, I'll give myself that, but I'm not looking through it, looking at it, looking at the comments, nothing. I'm not going through any of it. I record some content on those days. I try to record like stuff either that's about spirituality or religion or nature, or when I say nature, like kind of like social nature. I recently did like an LGBTQ plus kind of short series that I think I recorded all during a Sabbath time period. Of just short, well, some of the episodes there's like a longer overview and then like short little episodes in there. And that's kind of mostly what I do. That's something that's a little newer. That's one of the more impacting things I've tried. And just notice where there's any kind of anxiety or stress coming up. I literally at times get like, man, I don't want to watch any more of these like Osho videos or whatever, and I just want to like watch, just give me like Transformers or something on the big screen, and like I just want to sit there and like watch it, and I'm like, where's that coming from? Like the need to be like constantly like overly stimulated by like excitement and explosions. It's like, these movies are gonna be there. They're gonna be there when the sun goes down on Saturday night. I can watch it then. It's not like I'm busy. It's the weekend still, right? I still have the whole weekend. Like, I get weekends off, so I still have the whole weekend if I want to watch movies and stuff. But it's nice to... The first thing that I do when I'm done with my shift for the week is, get all my errands and everything kind of fully out of the way so that I don't have to be doing anything on Saturday or Sunday as far as the errands and stuff. That's ideally what it would look like. And then... just use my Sabbath time period to be able to kind of reconnect with nature in general, with the universe, with nature, just not really being too overwhelmed by things that seem like usually they're kind of controlling us. And the way I say that is because it seems like it's not hard, like it's not hard, like it's not hard to do. And again, like I mentioned, I'm not usually fully always into a lot of the mainstream stuff. I'm getting a little more into watching stuff because I'm, at my family's house, and like we do have a television here, so I do kind of more often, watch sports, and there's advertisements sometimes, well, all the time. And I think when I was at the hotel, I've been at hotels a lot too when I go down to San Diego. And when I was in the hotel, I was watching, what was I watching? I was watching like one of those pawning shows, like Pawn Stars or something. Just like reruns. I think I've even like seen them before online. And I was watching just episodes of that back to back, kind of in the background when I was like on hold at work and stuff, working from the hotel. And it's just stuff like that. I'm like, that kind of like constant need for like stimulation. And sports, yeah, I'll watch some sports. Usually I like to choose what I'm gonna watch. And so that's kind of one method that I use, is the Sabbath method, that kind of, lets me know what's going on with myself. It's like when you disconnect, I'm not even saying I don't watch YouTube or that I don't watch, movies, or that I don't watch anything, or that I don't do anything. I just cut a few things out for 24 hours or so. a few things, and I'm still doing mostly all the other stuff that I would normally do. I'm not working because I don't work during those times anyways. I don't touch anything that has to do with work. Most of my life has been like that. Whenever the Sabbath comes around, I almost always was not. I mean, I was kind of raised culturally with the Sabbath being like a very taboo thing to not do. So it is still a part of like my mindset that I'm very aware of sundown times, when the sun rises, when the sun sets, almost all the time of the year. I'm constantly checking my, the sundown times and like different things like that. Like, and it's kind of weird, maybe, but it's just something that I'm very in tune with, as well as like lunar cycles and things like that. Because a lot of Jewish holy days take place based on like the moon, and it's something that I think a lot of Western Americans don't really pay too much attention to, but I'm very connected to that. And throughout the year, even during like most weekdays, I usually try to go like right before I'm unwinding. I try to go outside, even if it's like superficial, like go outside, unlock my car doors, lock my car doors, something like that. This is meaningless, but I'm just like locking up my car, or like, even though it's locked, obviously it's going to be locked. I'm in LA right now. It's locked. It's freaking locked. But yeah, I lock the, I'll go out and, just, I'm not really watching the sunset. I can't see it exactly from the house because there's like a couple hills. So the sun actually sets a lot earlier behind the hill. But like if I go to the beach, which is like right there, I can definitely watch a sunset every day if I really wanted to. And then excuse me. Wow. Not just the sunset, but I mentioned, I wake up ridiculously early too. So a lot of times I'm awake and the sun's not even out yet. That's very common for me too. And so yeah, like the Sabbath is definitely something that kind of alerts me to what's going on. It kind of reconnects me with certain aspects of nature, like when it's night, when the sun goes down, when the sun's setting. And I notice, the sun's setting earlier and earlier. It's still setting in the range of like 8 p.m. where I live. Very, very soon, it's going to be in the range of the 7 p.m. time periods, and it's just going to keep changing and changing. Yeah, the summer solstice wasn't that long ago, in like a little later in June, almost about a whole month ago, when the sun was setting like 8:30ish p.m. or so, late. And now it's almost going to be like 7:50 something within just a few days. And so, I get aware of things like that, and the time that the sun comes up is changing too. And yeah, it just kind of keeps me kind of like a little more, I don't know if the word's grounded, but a little more aware of like what's actually happening, in my mind and in the earth, in general. Because days can tend to drag. Days can tend to feel like, okay, every day's like the same thing, and then like you have the weekend, and then probably during your work or school week, there's like different days where there's different stuff happening a little bit, but ultimately most of us have kind of the same routine going on that we do most of the day, and it gets monotonous. And just paying attention to something like sundown times and like going outside, not exactly on the dot of sunset, but like I'll usually go outside within probably like a 20 minutes of the sun setting, and I'm pretty like conscious of it. I notice I'll fall off of it sometimes too, and I won't be conscious of it, and I'll just be like, those are the times when I can tell, when I don't even realize, oh shoot, it's about that time for the sun to be setting. I'm gonna like go outside, get a little fresh air. Mind you, like 2 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes. I'm not even like out there long. I'll just sit on the front step, or like watch some traffic, or sit on like we have like a yard that has like bricks around, and I'll sit like on like the little brick wall on our front yard or something. It's usually the front yard. I just go outside and just kind of, it's just the whole purpose of like, this is the end of today, and like it's over, and I like to kind of witness it. I like to witness the end of like every day, like just out in the fresh air, just witnessing how the day is ending and it's over, and we're moving into something new. It's shifting now to the nighttime rest and to the next day. I believe in Jewish culture, the day actually starts with the sundown. So after the sun goes down, it's now evening. That's the next day, technically, right? Mainly because of how the Bible says, and there was evening and there was morning, and that was the first day. And there was evening and there was morning, and that was the second day. And that the Bible's kind of worded like that, like in the very beginning in Genesis, and talking about creation. And I mean, if it started with evening, then it's like, okay, now we're still starting with evening. So when the sun goes down, this is now officially, that day is done, and now we're in the next phase. But I mean, I still live like in the US, and the US doesn't really see it like that necessarily. Like, you start your next day of the calendar when the sun when it's after midnight. Pretty much the next morning. It's midnight, it's not sundown. Those are two different things. So that's one thing I do, is just cutting things out. And in addition to cutting things out, I add things in. So another thing that I do is forms of meditation. Now, I'm very free flowing with this. I've had days where I did like every hour or every other hour meditating, and once I kind of lost my focus, I would stop. Like, I'll do it different ways. So I've done like a whole, like, once I lose my focus, then I just kind of move on and just don't do it and don't push myself. And I'll do it like every hour like that, or maybe every other hour like that, or every 2 hours like that. I'll just pick how much I'm gonna do it, and try to do it every hour, every other hour, for like a certain time frame. If it's every like couple hours, I could do that for like the whole day, because it's like every couple hours, like, it's not like it's that much. But when it's every hour, I'm not gonna do like 30 minutes of meditation every hour. I don't really do that. I've thought about it, but I'm like, I don't really know if I'm really gonna do that anytime soon, honestly. So yeah, the meditating, and again, with meditation, for me, it can kind of be the same. I definitely try like a gentle approach to when my focus shifts, to kind of keep like an approach when my focus shifts to not be doing that. But sometimes I'll push, and when I push, I almost always reach a level of discomfort. And then again, there we are at that ideal place where I want to get. Cuz then it's like I've hit my limit. I've hit the point where I need to work on where I need to like work on this. Kind of the same thing with like the iPhone, or being online or whatever, watching YouTube, or if I'm on Instagram or whatever. And getting to a point where I get to that discomfort level, and I try to push a little bit past it, and I'll try not to come out of it. Usually it passes. So it's almost like, this is going to be the dumbest example, but it's almost like when you run. When you run, if you're like in some kind of okay shape, right? I'm not talking like somebody who hasn't run for like 10 years and then you just start running. This isn't the same thing. But if you run or jog or walk or whatever, there's usually going to be that like very beginning where it's like, oh, this is fine. Like the first few steps is like, this is just fine. I can just run. It's not a problem. And then you get, you run, and then it gets a little challenging, and then it gets a little harder and harder and harder to a certain point. But if you push past that, usually you're going to reach a point where now it feels better, and you actually feel better now than you did at the very beginning, and you're still running. And meditating, that does happen too. At least for me it does. I get to a discomfort point, and then I can push past it to a point that's like, now this feels way better than it did, before. But sometimes I like to stop at the discomfort and not push. Sometimes I can't push. Sometimes I'm like, this is way too uncomfortable to push. Like, what the heck is going on? I did not expect that. And it's just eye-opening a lot of the time. I find it pretty interesting, to say the least, to have those experiences, because it's like, it's like an interesting thing to have like silence tell you something. And that's kind of how I see like the Sabbath is like that. You're kind of silencing a lot of things in your life. Disconnecting from a lot of things in your life for a 24-hour period. Meditations like that, you're kind of disconnecting from a lot of, stimulations of different kinds, and you're focusing on your breathing. You're focusing on your body, the contact of your body onto different surfaces, unless you are able to float or levitate. You're usually going to be touching something, even if it's your shoes standing. I like to lay down. It's kind of like a good nighttime routine for me, to like lay down kind of flat, maybe on my back or something like that, and just focus on, I kind of learned this recently. So kind of like when I'm having trouble kind of calming my mind, just laying there on my back and feeling every point of the surface that my body is touching, like on a bed or yoga mat or whatever I'm laying on, couch or whatever. And I'm just laying there, and it's like I have my heels touching my my calves, my all my back, my head, my neck, my arms, like the back part of my arms where my elbows are. Maybe my hands are palms down, maybe they're palms up, and all those surfaces are touching the bed or whatever it is. and I feel that, and it basically feels, it's kind of like, it's pretty intense, honestly, to just feel all the surfaces touching, and to just focus on that. It's hard to focus on all that. I mean, it's not like an intense, it's not like pain or anything like that. It's not like too obvious. It's pretty subtle, but the more you focus on it, because there are so many points of your skin touching a surface, the more you focus on it, it's really hard to focus on other thoughts, on other things. You can kind of focus on like your breathing speeds, your breathing depth, and all the surfaces touching your skin, and even give that like a minute, and usually you'll be able to have your mind calm enough that you can get into a state to meditate, or if you pray or whatever you're trying to do, usually that will just like shut everything like kind of like way a lot of levels lower, so that I can actually like stop my mind just like racing all over the place and just like frantically like searching to catch thoughts, and I just can't just like stop doing that. Like I have to have like some kind of buffer. That's kind of my buffer, like between, it's almost like, I mean, people who know me well know that like when I'm off work, I don't really like to do anything too important. I don't like to go straight from work to doing some other specific thing. I like to go from work to something in between, and then home, or then, what I would consider the next important task of my day. I like to have like that buffer. So before, when I would drive to and from work, that would be like either running an errand to like go get a couple groceries, or go to the gym for a few minutes. I mean, there were days where I literally just went to the gym with my headphones, sat on a bike, watched 2 YouTube videos, checked my emails and all my social media posts, and responded to everybody. And by that time, it was already 30 minutes. It's like, it's really not that much time. And I would do that every day on the like front-facing bike, and just sit there and just like chill, getting in a little bit of exercise, and then I just leave, and that was fine. But yeah, those are kind of, that's long. I've been talking a while. I can feel it because my throat feels really weird. But those are some of the things that, I've kind of learned that I do almost daily, weekly. And then sometimes I just totally fall off and I don't do like any of it, and I don't really care, and I'm just like, screw this, I'm gonna do what I want. But I always kind of come back to it, honestly. It's just kind of like my way of being able to kind of like make sense of being connected with, pretty much, with the universe, with Earth, with nature, with myself. It's easy to feel pretty disconnected in the world we live in, because we're so, stuck doing so much all the time. A lot of jobs are pretty, tech heavy. I mean, I don't even work in tech, but I mean, if I didn't know how to like bug things a little bit, and kind of, troubleshoot a little bit on my own, if I didn't know how to do that, I don't think I could do my job, honestly, with the amount of times the Wi-Fi disconnects and all the weird stuff you have to log into, and all these password confirmations and all this stuff. You're just like, oh my goodness. But but yeah, full circle, when it comes to happiness in general, I think it really does help to make rituals, routines, something that's meaningful to you, something that's, beneficial to you. And if you don't know where to start, if you don't really know what you value, one thing you can kind of think about is, what is it that you do or think about or have in your life that, you would wake up at 4 in the morning to do it. You would lose sleep to do it because you like it so much. You would spend money to do it. You would maybe go into debt to do it. Like, I'm not saying like do reckless things at all. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, when you have a passion for something, when you have hobbies, when you have interests, when you have something that you really care about, there's almost nothing that's going to get in your way of doing it. Even if you're really in a bad mood, and even if you really just don't want to do things, and you're like sad, or you just like don't want to, be, around people, and then this opportunity comes up to do something that you really love, you're probably going to do it, right? Because you care about it. Even if it's something as simple as like watching a video on YouTube, or like watching a Netflix movie or whatever. You see that new episode's out and you're like, I want to watch this. It doesn't matter if it's midnight and you need to go to bed because you got to work in the morning. You're excited to watch it. Even if you don't watch it that moment, it's something that kind of gets you kind of out of your like zone of like, I could put this off and wait. This can wait. I wish this could wait till later. I wish I could spend my time doing other things, not doing this right now. Those things usually aren't going to be things that are going to shift your mood. Usually what's going to shift your mood is going to be, it doesn't have to be something external, but I'm just thinking about things that are potentially external things, but they could be internal things too. Like, what is it that you're going to do that you wouldn't really otherwise, like everything else, regardless of your energy, you would put on the back burner to do this one thing, or a couple things. You might have more than one thing that you really love, but that kind of gives you an idea of what it is, like for me, snowboarding is a big one. It doesn't matter to me if I need to be spending my money on other things, like I've had times in my life when I couldn't even really like afford, like expensive, nice groceries, but I would get them, I could afford them, but I'd have to like blow off other kind of like hangouts and parties and stuff to get these like nice foods and groceries and stuff. Snowboard season comes around, I don't mind eating lentils and ramen and all. It's like, dude, I gotta buy these lift tickets, like I don't really care about any of the other stuff. So that's one thing. Another, snowboarding, definitely. If I'm in the mood to write music, then yeah, writing music. Definitely just working on projects that I kind of pull out of my mind, that I'm like, okay, I got these goals to do this. I'm going to do this now. And I kind of have little project babies that I kind of like to create. And, I can stay up too late doing that kind of stuff too. And I can be like, just like right now, it's like lights out at 10, or lights out a little before 10. And it's 9 minutes after 10. And here I still am over here recording this thing. Like a lot of things I kind of do, but don't really, I still haven't talked them through or written them down. Not that, me documenting things is really like the most important thing on the face of the planet, but I like to play with ideas. I like to challenge myself in weird ways. I really like to disconnect from what I think I need. I'm not talking like food, shelter, water. I'm just saying like there's other stuff that sometimes I think I need, or think is going to benefit me, or think my life is going to be happier or better if I have it, or if I consume it, or if I watch it, or if I entertain myself with it, and then I disconnect from it, and I'm like, yeah, it's not even a necessity. And I shock myself sometimes. I really do shock myself with the things that come up with, when I'm disconnected. when I disconnect myself. It's just like I just took the plug out and I'll be back online later. Like I don't think I've done a full day of no phone or a full day of no internet. I mean, I've probably done the no internet before, just because, we've had days before when our internet maybe went out completely, but nowadays it's like we've got 5G, we've got, I've got a hotspot. Like it's going to be real hard for me to not be able to be online for a whole day. Like I have to actively not want to do it, and that doesn't sound appealing to me at all right now. And even things like that, when I think about like how weird is that I probably wouldn't spend a day offline. That means like no texting my friends, no checking my apps, messages. I don't know. I probably wouldn't do it yet. But even just thinking about why would I not do that? It doesn't seem on the surface to be something that would be painful or hard. But it's like there's a reason that we do these things, because we find a benefit in them. And it's not always a benefit, but we feel at a certain point sometimes like we can't not do these things. And I've talked about it before, kind of how I've noticed the evolution of devices and things compared to my childhood. I was raised, I mention this so much because it's part of my culture. I can't not mention it. But, being raised with the Sabbath and being raised around people, I'm not going to go into way too much detail because I always do. But being raised around a lot of people who were very, we call them Sabbatarians. They keep the Sabbath pretty strictly without fail in whatever way they're keeping it. But, I was raised usually with the stigma around television and radio, especially secular television and secular radio. And then there was a certain point where, there was the desktop computer that most people had in their houses with dial-up internet that most people wouldn't use. And a lot of people would maybe not buy things, purchase things, even if that's food. They'd already have the food in the house. And then some people were even more, strict with it, and they wouldn't cook anything, or they wouldn't, work at all or study at all. And mind you, it's 24 hours. It's not like it's a week. It's Friday sundown to Saturday sundown. For most people, most people aren't scheduled to be doing stuff during that time period anyways, right? So it's not like somebody's asking you don't do these things, but you're like busy running around. Like most people could literally just be home the whole time, even if they're not going to any kind of service. Most people, I'm not saying everybody, but most people could be home. And so that's kind of why it's like weird that it's such a hard thing. And ever since the devices got more handheld, I think it started with when people had the Sidekicks and Blackberries. And then, people started getting phones like the Razors where you could text with like T9 and stuff like that. I think the Sidekick just had a keyboard, so you didn't have to use T9. And then, the Blackberry had a keyboard too and had internet. The Razor had internet to some extent. There were some things that had internet capabilities, and once it hit the smartphone, once those started coming out, I no longer heard this discussion about detaching, from technology. And you'll literally see kids like in churches watching cartoons on their parents' iPads, on their parents' iPhones, on smart devices, on tablets. And I'm not trying to be judgmental about it. I'm just saying, when I was younger, that would be almost equivalent to bringing like a Discman or Walkman to church. That's like not, church music or church CDs, and having them in the middle of church listening to like K rock or something on headphones. I mean, I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying, like, that would have never happened back then. Um, I don't know people who didn't use the phone. That wasn't something that I knew, that I ever heard anybody talk about. But usually it was TV, radio, and if you were going to listen or watch TV or radio, it was usually going to be classical music, maybe jazz, lyricless music, and, religious music, meaning Christian religious. It wasn't like Buddhist monks or something like that. Like, it was usually like Christian religious. And so, I grew up with this kind of a discipline. And like I mentioned before, my family was not that strict. We would mostly watch sports. There would be a lot of good sports games on the Sabbath, like if you were following like UEFA Champions League or like the Gold Cup or like whatever you were following, like there were always good games on. And our family liked sports, and we would watch sports, and we'd have people over and watch sports. And we always had movie channels, and not always, but a lot of times we have movie channels. So we would watch movies. But like before church, we'd always have like church music playing, or like TBN, or like some kind of videos that we might have or something that were like religious related. And yeah, it was always interesting. But yeah, it's like I kind of ask myself why. Like, why is it that the church itself kind of stopped with the idea around smartphones and tablets? Why did they stop, talking about like disconnecting from those things? Because I did find it hard to disconnect from TV and radio. But also, it's like I was young too, and I had friends, and we could just go around and go to the beach and go do stuff. Mind you, we couldn't play sports or like go swimming in the water or whatever, but we could like take blankets to the beach and like chill at the beach and relax and talk and like hike. We could go hiking. Like, there was things we could do. Go to the park, play, play on the equipment and stuff. But there were definitely a lot of rules, and they were kind of like made up. Like, every family, every household, every church, it just depended how strict you were, how strict you wanted to be, how strict you wanted to appear. Some people, it was like all appearance. And if I always talk about Adventist stuff because I love it so much still. And yeah, if you've ever heard of Badventist, look up Adventist alert. It's the funniest thing. It's supposed to be comedy. I find it funny, but yeah, I've been talking almost 90 minutes now, but yeah, I think happiness is definitely important, and it's possible to find ways to alter your energy, your mood, and shift your mood. And incorporating some of these types of methods really helps. At least for me, it helps. Just being connected with different things helps me, and it helps put things in perspective. There's something about ending the day, ending the last bit of daylight, coming into a new phase of a day or a different day or whatever it may be, and just kind of reflecting on things and thinking about, just like, okay, if I even feel like I have like some kind of a problem, it's like, the earth is so big, the world is so giant, what is my little problem in the scope of like the idea of like daytime and nighttime, or like a day like changing into a whole other day, and like what goes into that with like the moon and the sun and like the rotation of the earth and all these things. It's like, really? And here I am, just like this little speck with something in a blip of time that I'm not even going to remember myself, but then within days or weeks or months or years of it happening, like it's all, a lot of times it's all just like not as significant as it seems. And mind you, I'm talking about people who have their basic needs met and not severe issues going on. And my heart definitely goes out to those people who are struggling a lot. It can be any of us at any moment, in all honesty, and that is not meant to sound like, scare kind of thing, but things are getting kind of weird out there, as we all know. But yeah, that wasn't meant to take like a negative turn at all, but I just, I may not sound like super happy when I'm talking. My throat feels weird and it's kind of hard to talk like I normally do. I'm actually like in a decent mood. I just know I should be going to sleep soon. So I just kind of wanted to record something because I haven't really recorded on this topic before. Not much anyways, but I probably will, because I know that a lot of the topics out there, whether it's around finance or social things or, social changes and all sorts of stuff changing around, whatever the, area may be, a lot of it is geared towards negative. I consume a lot of YouTube content, and I notice a lot of it has turned towards just like negative, scare, beware, be afraid, like all this impending doom is upon us. And it's like, I mean, if it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen. We don't really need to fill all of our day with it. It's important to be like aware and like knowledgeable of things, but I mean, once you kind of know what's going on, you don't really need more information sometimes. Sometimes you get like enough information to go by, and you don't need to keep listening to it all day long. It's like, it's not helpful for the brain, for the mind. It's not helpful for the soul at all, to be like consuming news content and stuff that's like high stimulation. If anything, that's probably the one thing, if anything, that I learned from being raised in the religion that I did, is that high stimulation impacts you severely. Low stimulation can too. Like if it's way too low, it'll impact you too, negatively. But high stimulation, constant stimulation, lack of breaks, lack of disconnecting, it all impacts us. And a lot of times when I notice that my mood has like shifted towards a direction I don't really want it in, is usually because I haven't been disconnecting from things that are strenuous. Even though if I find them entertaining, they might be fun, they might make me laugh, it might be cool, but it's still your mind thinking, your mind getting very like wrapped up in like focusing on like these ideas and comedians and movies and storylines and all the stuff that, even if you've seen it, I like to rewatch stuff that I've seen a lot, and I'll rewatch it over and over and over again, and I really enjoy doing that because it is a little less stressful, because I already know like some things I like that are like very low stimulation that I've watched multiple times, like Leave It to Beaver, things like that are just like old, and I've seen so much of it, and I don't really need to watch it, but I still find it interesting, and I don't like fully remember all the details all the time, so I can still kind of just watch it when I feel up to that. But alright, I'm really gonna stop recording for now because it's late and this is super long, but I obviously had nothing else to do tonight, and this was kind of on my mind, so I figured this would be the perfect night to record this, because I was wanting to record it, but other times I was driving, and I was like, I don't know if I can record this while I'm driving. I I hope the fan in the back isn't too loud. But with that, thanks for listening.